All right, guys. So today what we're going to be talking about is perspective and how perspective can be really a really nice dynamic addition to your drawings. If you guys remember back in the day, we talked about perspective with shapes and different blocks and stuff. So generally you have a horizon line. If you have a ruler, you can use a ruler. Let's put it right in the middle. So you have a horizon line and you have a vanishing point. So right on the line there. And you have a block or something. Right, that's vanishing into the distance. I'm not doing this right. Everything needs to go right towards a vanishing point. And then you just basically cut off the edges. And essentially now you've got a block in 3D space. Well, you can do this with people as well. All right, so let's use the same vanishing point. And let's put someone who's maybe walking down a path or something. So you can have a figure. I'm just going to do this real quick. Figure, and he's walking along. Maybe he's got a walking stick or something, whatever. Something like this. If you got a figure walking along, and as soon as you have a horizon line and a vanishing point and a figure, you've got someone in 3D space. So if we wanted to have a whole troop of figures walking maybe in a row, what we can do is we can draw lines from our the top of our figure's head to the bottom of our figure's feet. And now essentially we've got our sizes. So our next figure, if there's a guy kind of behind him, he's going to have to be able to fit into this section here, from here to about there, right? So maybe he's walking along like that. And of course, these are all just guides, right? So something like that is fine. So now he looks like he is about the right size. We could have one more guy way out in the distance here. These guys are all walking in a straight line. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you get closer. So we can even have one more really close, right? So close that it's not even going to be able to fit on the page. Right. So that's perspective in terms of making figures larger and smaller in a particular scale. Right, so having figures that are different sizes, even though these guys are all technically exactly the same size, right? They're all, if you were to put them all on the same plane, right? If you were to put them shoulder to shoulder, they would all be the same size, but they get smaller because they're receding into the distance. So that's really important for when you have figures that are varying sizes, that you have depth in your drawing. Now, you can also have perspective, not just in terms of depth, but also in terms of like the height and where your vanishing points are. So again, let's get a horizon line in here. And so you can have figures below the horizon line. Let's draw a little guy here. So this figure looks like he's like the camera is up high, right? He looks like he's looking down on the figure, right? So that means if our, say our horizon or our vanishing point is right there, if we have, if we were to make this guy 3D, he would be kind of cylindrical, right, like this. We would have less of, here I'll draw up a side. You would see more of the top of his body, right? If this was like a cylinder here, you'd see more of the top of his body here. And less of the bottom. So you see, we don't see the bottom, but we do see the top. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If there's a figure that's right on the horizon line, let's draw another guy here, we're going to see both. So essentially we're going to see, we won't be able to see the top of the head, but we will see underneath, right? Because everything's going to be going down like this. If we were to draw, let's make the, instead of cylinders, just make this guy a boxy box man. Essentially would have a bunch of boxes that look something like this, right? But as soon as you start getting close to this horizon line, it's going to shift. So now we're going to start seeing the top of the figure, right? So if his hips are poking out a little bit, we're going to start being able to see the top of the box. Before we could only see the bottom, now we're only going to be able to see the top. Hopefully that makes sense. So won't be able to see the top here for his arms, where his shoulders are there. But we will be able to see, if they go below this horizon line, we'll start being able to see the tops of things and not the bottoms. And then lastly, if you have everything above the horizon line, you'll only be able to see the bottom of things. So above, you see the bottom, below, you see the top. So this figure, make him smaller again. Maybe he's off in the distance. We're only going to be able to see the bottom of him. Bottom of his feet. I like to think of things in terms of cylinders because a lot of the parts of the body are basically cylinders. You have, your arms, your legs. Let's just draw an arm in perspective. So if you have an arm that's just kind of like on the horizon line, so we have our circle for our shoulder, our elbow, we have our hand, our wrist, and then our hand below. You can start thinking of the parts of the body less as just lines, especially when we get to the second stage here where we're starting to bulk the guy up. Instead, start thinking of the parts of the body as cylinders. So just flip a switch in your mind, and instead of seeing them as 2D shapes, see them as three-dimensional shapes. So for instance, right here, that's kind of like the center line. Everything above is going to start kind of going like this. You're going to start seeing rings that kind of go around and through the entire limb. Right? And then the same thing underneath, but you're going to see more on the outside than you do on the inside. Right? So you see more of the top. This is basically, we're basically like, if we were to do a, basically like cut this guy into, pretend he's made out of plastic and made, or a mannequin, and then just chopped a bunch of slices, like a bunch of like dissection slices through the whole thing. That's what you would see, right? You would see this is on the outside, this is on the inside, outside, other side, right? The middle line right here is right on the horizon line, so it's just a straight line. This one is what you see up here. Now it's arcing up, right? Because it's above the horizon line, arcing up, arcing up. These ones arc down below. So getting this kind of in your mind as you're drawing your figures will start giving you a bit of a sense of three-dimensionality, right? All bodies are not flat, right? You don't want a little Mario guy, right? You don't want a little 2D guy, because that's not what people look like. You want to have them having bulk, having mass, having depth to their bodies, in order to give them kind of a three-dimensional look. So that's a really short explanation of perspective. So again, there's two different kinds, or two different ways that we can implement this in our drawings. The first one is scale. So things get smaller the further away they get, but still remaining the same size in proportion. The other one is making your figures look like they have, they're actually on a horizon line, and that you see certain parts of them over others. Now this is going to lead directly into probably the most important lesson that we're going to be doing, which is foreshortening. It has to do with perspective. So practice doing this. Practice making figures look small in the distance or large the closer up you get. Practice with horizon lines and having things above, below, or on top of the horizon line. And yeah, good luck.